Hi, my name is Rachel. About a year or so ago, I did a video talking about introducing my kids special needs, and I didn't really do anything after that because I was kind of nervous to know what other people had to say, because I feel like us as parents should really be supporting each other, but I feel like there's just so much going on out there that some people just have to be negative. So nothing negative happened with that video, and it was actually kind of well received. And I mean, I still have very small subscriber count on this channel, but I decided that because that video did not go, everything was okay with that video, I was going to go ahead and just kind of stump the bandwagon and do another video. And I'm going to start with my son Connor. He is 6 now. Just talk about him. I feel like there's not so much talk, or there's not so much information about, and a lot of moms sharing their stories with their special needs kids. And this is quite a big community, but a lot of people are very quiet, and that's okay. You can choose to do whatever you feel comfortable with, but I decided I wanted to share what I'm going through because my experience is different, as everybody's is, but maybe this could be helpful to anybody. I'm going to start with Connor and what he has, what milestones he has hit, at what time he has hit them, and I'll talk more a little bit about the milestone bracket and what I kind of really feel about that. But okay, so let's start off with talking about Connor, and we'll start off and we'll do more updates on things, and I'll go into details about you know, how he got diagnosed with all these things, but I'm just going to kind of tell you, and we can branch off from this video. So the last video was kind of introducing you to both of the boys. So this one, I'm just going to focus on Connor. Connor is 6 years old. He was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, but they weren't exactly, but he's very low, to the point where maybe on in his life it may be reversed, because I'm not exactly sure if he is or if he has something else. So we're waiting on getting approval, actually an appointment, because that can take a year to 6 months to get an appointment with the doctors that they recommend or whatever. He was diagnosed with that, but first he wasn't diagnosed with that until he was 5. So he just turned 6 this past October, and but first he was experiencing significant delays. So like, he never ever crawled, and he didn't sit up until he was a year old. Yes, that's a very significant delay. And at first we thought he had hypotonia, but they did some tests on that. He didn't have that, but it showed that he had just kind of low muscle tone, but not hypotonia. So and he has also weak ankles. So he didn't sit up until he was a year old, and then he like sit up independently. Like, he could sit up in a high chair and all these things, but he didn't sit up independently until he was almost a year old. So with that being that kind of his primary mobility was to roll wherever he needed to go, and to us that was really cute. As parents, you know, you find joy in anything. And so he had some physical therapists, some early intervention come to our house. And what I will say about that is, if you feel anything uncomfortable or wrong, don't be afraid to say anything, because I was new to it. This is what I'm saying to people that are first time. If you are like, nope, I don't like that, speak up, because you are your child's support system, your child's advocate. I said that so many times in the last video about being your child's advocate. You have to just, even if you feel like someone's going to get upset at you, just don't even care. Just don't. So he had some early intervention, and that proved to be really hard for him. But as I learned, it was they weren't exactly working at his level and his pace, from what I learned after working with so many other people after we moved that they were just pushing him to do things he just physically couldn't do. They were trying to get him to walk before he could even stand up. I mentioned that on the last video. And so it was really hard to see him struggle, and we just thought that was normal at the time. No, it wasn't exactly normal. So he did not walk for till he was almost 4. He was like 3 and 10 months, something like that. So what we had to do is he had to get ankle supports. I probably have some somewhere. I'll put the picture of them right here of what they look like. I don't know exactly the name. There's quite a different medical term name for them, but we went to a doctor and they recommended that for his ankles because so if this is his foot, okay, and you're standing flat, he kind of stands like this, and the ball of his ankle that points down, like downward to the floor. So that's when he's standing with nothing, and that really prohibited him from walking because it hurt, it was hard, and he had no safety in balance. We took him to like a foot kind of specialist to figure out, like, to get his feet measured, to have him look at him, and they were like, yeah, these are flat arches, you know, stuff like that. And that was gonna cost us about $2,500 to get these in place. And we were like, we don't have $2,500. He needs these shoes. But then at the end of the day, he was going to need these things for the rest of his life. So that would be, we would have to pay so much money for them in the future. It wasn't just like a one-time girls with your foot kind of thing. So then we heard about Shriners Hospital. And it's funny because we should have known about this my whole entire life. My great-grandfather was a Freemason, and we went to these Shriners Hospital fundraisers all the time when I was a kid. And I was like, why didn't we didn't click this? We just kind of heard about that they also had these through family members asking other people where they got the ones that they got. And so we went there, and that actually helped us financially. They had financial assistance. So with that being in place, the support of his ankle being upright, now as soon as he put them on, you could see a significant difference in the way that he was standing. And it almost that was set him on the road to success, because after that, that's when the walking started. He was not upset about it. It was easier for him. The second early intervention that we went to donated us a walker, able to use that longer than his time there, because once you hit 3 years old, you graduate out of early intervention. At least in my state. I'm not sure how it is all over the place, but his brother was still in it, so we were allowed to keep that walker a little bit longer. And he took that walker to preschool with him, and the preschool helped him, and he got to walk around the school, and that really made a difference. And he was starting to manipulate the walker and go. I have some videos of it that I can put in here, and he loved walking with that. We took him to the mall, and he could just cruise, and just people would ask, is that supposed to keep him contained? And we're like, no, this is to keep him moving, going straight. So now he's walking independently, he's walking upstairs, he's standing up, and he's 6. So but also Connor, he is not using a spoon or a fork. We find that that's kind of scary for him, so we're starting it slowly. We're having him let us feed him, stuff like that. And he is still using a sippy cup. That's something that we are working with. And he is still using pull-ups, but he is very on track to be potty trained. He's doing very well and responding to it very well from what I have seen. But what I've been trying, I've tried different tactics over a year. Different things like reward systems, making it so he is not bored. We've made some mistakes, we've made some strides. So I can touch more on that potty training later, but right now I'm kind of in the starting stages of that with him. One good thing about Connor is he's always been a very, very great sleeper. Always been a great sleeper, and he was a very happy baby. He didn't have a lot of frustrations or crying. The only problem is if he was like overtired, he would just scream and scream and scream and scream and scream. And we learned that he had very high anxiety levels. We would go out to places, so like when he was first born, in his first year, we lived out of state. We didn't have any family. We lived in like a mountain on top of in Colorado, and my husband was working at like a mine there. So anyway, we didn't go out a lot of places, and if we did, it was a quiet restaurant because it was a small town. So when we moved back here, we went to a restaurant with our family, and he was so upset about that. Like, that was like so much sensory for him that, and we didn't understand this. All of this is a learning process for him. So he did really, what we have learned, and I've tested some of this stuff. I'm kind of repeating from the last video, but it really kind of goes inside with Connor. So he really, really, really has gotten better with restaurants. He actually loves them. He knows that he's gonna get food. So one thing that I will say, if you are struggling and your child is having a hard time with something, just keep trying it. Repetition can really make things improve, to show them that things are going to be okay. Things are not going to be hard. Obviously, if something that's super scary and you're afraid, don't do it again. Like, don't take your kid on a roller coaster and expect them to like it, because I don't even like roller coasters. So, but like, you know, take them to a restaurant. Try to go to a restaurant that you know is a little bit quieter, or find out the times that they are. Don't go at like dinner rush or stuff like that. Just go, you know. So with that being said, my mom and I would go to lunch a lot. We would go to restaurants that we would find that were like buffet restaurants that were just kind of chill, and no one would come to our table a lot, and we could just kind of go and get their food whenever, and it was instant. So buffets really, really worked for us. And Connor is now he's in kindergarten, and he actually he loves school. He doesn't cry about it. It's not a fight. He's in love with it. And yeah, I will not there are some things I will not explain where he is, where he's at, you know, for safety reasons, because not everybody needs to know where people are doing, how they're living. So one more thing that I wanted to touch on about Connor is that he also has something called CVS, and it's cyclic vomiting syndrome. And it is something that he will just randomly start vomiting uncontrollably, to the point where any of the medication that we have given him doesn't seem to help, and he's ended up in the hospital 3 times so far in 2018 and past, a couple different things, and it just doesn't turn out to be a very great situation. So not even 3 times, I swear it's been, let's see, 2, 5 5 different times he's been hospitalized with an IV. The first time he was like he was 1.5, and I just thought, oh my gosh, he's just got the flu, blah, blah, blah. I took him to an Instacare, telling him he's been throwing up for so long. They're like, we just need to give him fluids, and I'm like, he's not holding it down. They gave us Zofran to use, and that was not working. And then I took him to his pediatrician, and his pediatrician almost was kind of upset at me, and he goes, this boy needs fluids. And so he had to call, and I had to take him in, and they had to administer an IV. And it was the first time that I learned about IVs. And the second time he had an IV, poor guy, the first time he had an IV is he had to have a brain scan, and they gave him one. And then I learned about IVs and how he needs to have them. And from then on, I have always been like, you need to give it to him this way. And if they don't, then I kind of get a little bit upset. I'm on lion mode. With that being said, he is on a nightly medication for it. It's like an allergy kind of medication that helps to, like, you know, kind of keep everything not to upset his system, I guess. And Then he is also on something, I'm not going to get anyone else's opinion on this. This is what we have decided as his parents. He's also on a CBD oil. He takes that only when he's having a fit. That can help calm him to stop it so he doesn't have to be hospitalized. The last thing I want him to do is have to be restrained for an IV. That's the hardest thing you've ever seen. When your baby's crying because he's dehydrated, all he wants is a drink, but he can't have a drink because it will just come right back out. But he's crying and he doesn't have any tears. That's the hardest thing you've ever seen. So, anything that we could do to help him has helped. I've heard that sometimes it doesn't help, but for him it's making vastly difference. The last episode that he had, he did not have to be hospitalized for that. I know that the older that he gets, the more control he will have over it, but now that he is 6 and doesn't understand what's happening, he just releases. I mean, he doesn't have control to think, okay, just relax, it'll be okay, try to keep the fluids down. It's just it's not a happy situation. So the way that he got diagnosed with this was I had to take him to a gastroenterologist, and first I saw somebody and they were just like, well, let's just check his digestion and maybe like that, the constipation. And then I was like, no, that's not my concern. He doesn't have that problem. He's been constipated in the past, as everybody else has, but this is not what his concern is. It's the vomiting. And so they sent me home with like a thing to do to, like, you know, flush his system. And I'm like, this is not going to work for him. So I kind of, not going to lie, I didn't even do it. Because it was not gonna do. It was like when he has, because when he does like have like diarrhea, it's like, that's not fun, and I don't want to deal with that with him. That he doesn't want to deal with that either. So I didn't want to make him have that, and that's basically what they were trying to do, was just get everything out. And I was like, that's not his problem. So we never did that, and ever since he's been on the medication, and I saw the actual doctor, because I kind of saw his assistant, which that's frustrating in and of itself, I just talked to him about what was our concern. He's just throwing uncontrollably. This can't just be like a nothing thing. And he told us what it was, and I was like, this makes total sense, because he gave us a brochure of the things that are happening with it. And basically CVS is like a migraine that happens within your stomach. It's almost like your stomach is having like a headache, like almost, I would say it's kind of like seizing, or like, just, I don't know, it doesn't like, your stomach's irritated, so it's just trying to get everything out of it. Basically, that's how it's happening. That's why the CBD oil seems to help, because it like relaxes his system, and that has helped him. So he doesn't have he doesn't have to throw up all day, and that's really sad. So that is like another thing on top of what he already deals with. Poor guy. But he's still so sweet and innocent, and I just can't get enough of that little boy. If there's anything that I have said that you want to know more about, like potty training, how we're going to transition a cup, spoon feeding, walking, standing, stuff like that, I can touch on. But talk to the people that you're working with. Ask them any question that you have. Any question. There's not a wrong question. Everything is relevant. Everything goes. So, not really sure which more to talk about. I could talk more about in this video about, actually I think I'm like another video. I was going to talk about more about what direction this channel is going to go in. So with that being said, this is Connor. He is 6. He has autism spectrum disorder. From what I've learned, he would be considered high functioning, but not right now. He would be low autism spectrum disorder because of his numbers. So how they diagnose autism is through a rating system to see what numbers they're at, and he was very, very low, to the point where they were like, this is like almost borderline not. So they've both been tested genetically, and that was probably the worst negative test I ever received. Was no, no, like I never cried because something came back negative, you know? So with that being said, I'm not really sure which one to touch on before I continue to ramble on about silly things. So I can touch more on a bunch more things. Maybe I can introduce you to the kids, stuff like that. It will be very brief based on what we know. And thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys are parents, go ahead and subscribe and ask me any questions with them down below. And thank you guys so much for watching. And I can't wait to go on this journey with you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.